All right, folks, really excited to share today's guest with you all. So I'm joined with Erdi, Erdi Babil, is it?
Babili.
Babili? So Erdi came highly recommended as awesome movement mobility coach. And yeah, a few people recommended him for me to reach out to him to come onto the podcast. And like I was already following him, really impressed with like his abilities and the content he was putting out. So I'm very excited to jump in today. So I appreciate you jumping on, Erdi.
Hey Connor, yeah, no stress at all. Good to meet you. I've seen you floating about on Instagram as well, and yeah, when you reached out to me, I'm always happy to come and just chat to other coaches and give whatever help or value I can in these conversations.
Awesome, man. Let's jump into more about like how you got to where you are today. So like how did you get into personal training, coaching, and the type of training you're doing now is pretty specific. So like, can you maybe walk us through that journey?
Yeah, it's a long-ish journey. Actually, I put out a post on it, a rough series of stories on it yesterday. Um, I first started coaching 9 years ago as let's say just generic personal trainer. I was working in a budget gym known as Pure Gym in London. It's like 15 minutes from my house, so I just cycle there every day. But before joining this gym, I had already done a couple of movement workshops that I'm on with Christopher Sommer and Ido Portal. So when I say movement, I mean like basically GST, gymnastic strength training, and a bit of flexibility, a bit of hand balancing, stuff like that. So I already had like a good interest in bodyweight training. I just finished university. So I had lots of time while I was at uni to sort of do research and do a bit of training myself. I was by no means like any good at any of the training myself, but I just liked the theory behind it. And I liked the idea of trying to help people in their physical development. So I became a PT, started working in this gym, Pure Gym. I was there for about 4 years, I think. Yeah, 2018 is when I left. It's 2014 when I started. I left in 2018. And when I left, I went a bit more independent. I started to basically try and expand my audience. So that's when I started to use Instagram more. And instead of doing more of the generic training, which is what people wanted in Pure Gym, like general body fat loss and muscle gain, which is, I mean, that was great fun as well. But I liked the idea of handstands and flexibility and bodyweight strength training more. I started pushing things on Instagram more and found some independent clients or private clients from outside the gym. So I started to train people in parks in London and train them in other gyms when the weather wasn't good and just rent space and things like that. And then I started to teach some classes for other gyms. And then about a year later, I opened my own gym in Bethnal Green. Had all of my sort of London following come to that gym and start taking classes with me there. And then COVID came like a year later, exactly a year later. Things got a little bit messy. Things got very messy, actually. So I basically decided to like cut out the business relationship that I was in, leave the gym, and just go fully for myself online. And I started putting a big heavy focus on online coaching. So that was like the end of 2020. Yeah. The end of 2020 is when I finally like cleared more than 10 online clients, and it just was growing since then. But in that whole process, so in 2018, when I did start to transition a bit more towards the bodyweight strength training, flexibility, hand balancing, etc., I also got myself my own coach who I'm still training with now. His name's Emmett Louis. He's an Irish guy. You might know him, also from
No,
Dublin.
I don't know Emmett, but like I know very much of him. He's super well respected, probably the most respected flexibility coach in the world, I'd say now.
Yeah, definitely one of them. Agreed. He's been coaching me for the last 5 years, and he's been helping me a lot in my own development. So everything that you see on Instagram now has been under his tuition. Yeah, and for the last 3 years, it's just all been just smashing the online content and online business and trying to use that online world to help facilitate the lifestyle that I want to be living.
Yeah. What is that lifestyle?
For me, it's going to be somewhere by the coast, fishing, moving, and then kind of just being in a slightly better climate compared to the UK. So for the past year, I've been traveling different parts of the world with my girlfriend, trying to decide on where we'd like to reside, because we're not too sure where we want to go, but we knew we want to leave the UK. And we just spent 6 months in Australia, and we're pretty confident that we want to go back there, because that sort of ticks all the boxes for us.
Yeah, Oz is a great fitness scene and great climate. We were just talking before we went live, like I was there for 6 years, but in Melbourne. So like Melbourne's not the best spot if you want good weather. It can feel like you're in Ireland or the UK. But where were you, up in Brisbane, or where were you based?
Yeah, we traveled around. So we started in Perth and then flew to Melbourne. Agreed, I didn't like Melbourne too much either. From Melbourne, went towards like Sydney, spent a little bit of time on Central Coast. I have a friend there who's also a client now, which is good. Then we moved up to Sunshine Coast. We spent a month in Sunshine Coast, and then the rest of it was spent sort of north and Queensland, and also we finished in Perth again for another couple of weeks.
Cool, man. Will you go back to Sunshine? Is that where you're going to base yourself?
Yeah, that's where we've sort of decided on. Like, still need to tell the parents, but that's what we're planning on, to go back at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think during COVID, there's like a lot of people from Melbourne moved to Sunshine Coast. It seems like a pretty like ticks all the boxes, I think, from a lifestyle standpoint.
Yeah, I think it basically, if you can work remote, and you're living in Melbourne, it doesn't really, in my opinion, make as much sense to stay in somewhere like Melbourne. Same for London. You know, if you work remote, there's no point staying in London when there's much nicer places in the UK. If you're looking for, or if you're like even a fraction of a bit interested in your own health and your own mental health, the city life isn't really good for anyone. So you will get out if you can have the ability to.
Yeah. One thing I found as well, like I'm from a village in Ireland. So like you're from London. So you grew up in London, did you?
Yeah, I grew up in London, but I'd always visit my family who lived in the village in Cyprus.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So like when I was living in Australia, like Melbourne's the same size as Ireland. So, so like after leaving Melbourne, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize how stressed I was there, you know, because it's so big, there's so many people. And now I realize like I'm in a small, like it's like 300,000 people in Timișoara in Romania. And I was in the Canaries before then. So I was just like, I just like smaller places. And like my ex-girlfriend, she was from Sao Paulo. She was the opposite, you know, so she wanted to be somewhere noisy and busy. So I think that's something to tap into as well. Like, where if you have the ability, you know, to live somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like everyone will go through different phases as well in their life, but even if we just look at like older populations and where they decide to end up in, they always end up moving out of the city at one point or another. And maybe some of them have spent like 40, 50 years to figure that out, or they've spent 40 to 50 years as a working as a, you know, means to an end, so they can leave the city. Whereas now we have that privilege to get online, build online businesses, or work remote, work from home, whatever. You know, some companies will give you that benefit, and you can go wherever you want to be. And for most people, well, I say for most people, for, like I said, people who kind of like generally want to value their health a bit more will tend to drift further out of the city. But then you also have those who maybe, like your ex-girlfriend, are still in the city hustle and bustle kind of mindset, and they want to enjoy that while they can. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever consider Cyprus now that you're fully
Yes.
online?
Yeah. So I spent 2 months there last year. Great country, beautiful. The food, I haven't found anywhere that has food that contests Cyprus's ingredients, like the meat, the veg, the fruits. They all taste amazing. The soil there is so fertile. You can grow so much for such a small island. It's great. But it basically it's in the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean is just empty for fish. And so it's like, it's nice to be, you can be by the ocean there and you can get like a nice place for very cheap. But if you're like me and you'd like to dive and snorkel and spearfish, it's just, yeah, it's not a great place to be, because there's literally no fish. Also, it's very, like, it's a bit too quiet sometimes. I like the, you know, having like the quiet, more relaxed lifestyle. But if you like compare Cyprus to somewhere like suburbs of Australia, it's just there's a lot less you can do in Cyprus. With, let's say in Australia, even if you're in the suburbs or like a smaller coastal town, let's say like Noosa Heads, that's where we spent a good month or so. You can still find access to all the modern amenities that you'd like, but while having that village type or surfer type lifestyle, if that's what you desire.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you do any free diving or anything like that?
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got into that like two years ago. But yeah, tell me about your free diving history and everything like that.
Yeah, I love freediving. So I was introduced to spearfishing. So spearfishing is a form of catching your own fish while freediving. So you can do it on scuba, but it's kind of frowned upon from most of the spearfishing community. So what you do is you'll have your snorkeling gear, mask and snorkel, set of fins, and you'll have a spear gun. Different waters will need different types of equipment. You might need like a thick wetsuit, thin wetsuit, whatever. I just learned in broad shorts, like swim shorts, small spear gun, mask snorkel, etc., and some fins. We would go on holiday to Cyprus, and my dad and uncle, they would take me. So I was like indirectly free diving. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I was while catching these fish. And then about 6 years later, I found a freediving community while I was at university in York. So I went to university up in York in Northern England. I made some friends there. I'm like, oh, you would really enjoy freediving if you like spearfishing. I'm like, oh, what's freediving? Like, oh, it's this sport where you hold your breath and you go underwater and basically try and hold your breath for longer or try and dive deeper. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. How do I do this? And then I found a freediving instructor over in where was he? Manchester, Steve Millard, and he did a course with him, and it sort of basically just helped improve my spearfishing abilities, if that makes sense. So I got into freediving a little bit as far as the sport goes. I think I did like a little competition, didn't do very well, but entered a little competition, did some training for it. But now I kind of just use it as a way to help improve the spearfishing.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, it's really amazing. It's a beautiful way to just I find it really relaxing as well. Very good for your mindset as well, like psychologically. I found there was a lot of fear when I would dive because my nervous system would be like, "You're gonna die, get out," when you start going down. And just kind of, I think the really cool thing is it teaches you to relax when you're getting very stressed, and the more you relax, the easier it gets. So
Yeah.
the more you let go, I found like you just let go, keep letting go, relaxing, and then it just gets easier. You can go deeper, you can hold your breath for longer. So it's kind of counterintuitive. A lot of the could maybe go into this from a fitness standpoint as well, like just being more present versus like gritting your teeth and pushing through. Sometimes isn't the best way to go with most activities.
Yeah, exactly. It's freediving's got like a very large psychological component, and it's so large at the beginning that people don't really realize the physiological component to it as well. There are physiological adaptations that will happen to things like your lungs and your breath hold capacity will improve over time, but the way like you said, that you get the biggest improvements is by learning to relax. So through the psychological elements, as you learn to relax better and quicker at the beginning, you'll notice really big improvements quite quickly. And like you said, you'll go from feeling like you're going to die to actually feeling like you are one with the ocean. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's very cool that you do that.
Yeah.
Spearfishing is definitely the next thing I want to get into because that sounds like the perfect, just go out, catch your fish and eat it and come back. It sounds like a pretty sweet life.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. There's actually quite a bit of spearfishing in the Canaries, so if you ever go back there, you could probably give it a try there. I don't know where the closest place to you would be. I'd have to look up it on the map. Haven't seen any. Romania has a coastline, right? I'm just being ignorant now of my geography. Or it
It
doesn't.
does, but like Greece would be the easiest place to
Yeah.
go from here. Greece
Okay.
is big free dive. I haven't been to Greece ever, so like it's definitely somewhere I'll go in the next 12 months and go free diving. And like Tenerife has got a massive free diving community as well. So yeah, Canaries is awesome. I think Europe in general, it seems to be really big here.
Yeah, there's a lot of free diving in Europe. Basically, there's not a lot of sharks and there's really good water. So
Yeah,
it's perfect for free diving. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome, man. Let's jump into training, mate. So kind of similar history in that I was in jets in Australia. It's probably kind of like pure, like a cheaper gym. Uh, One thing I found when I was starting showing, like I was doing GMB stuff, or we'll say kind of movementy style stuff, everyone was like in machines, and it was very low level ability level, we'll say, like very much complete beginners. So how did you find initially, maybe you were getting exposure to all this very, 2014, this is really strange stuff, like people aren't seeing this stuff. And then were you bringing that into the gym, or were you still kind of following a more traditional approach with clients then?
So I was following a much more traditional approach with clients then, in terms of just, let's say, like general S&C, strength and conditioning type work. And then I was using the money that I was making from that PT to invest in learning into movement. And it was quite a dilemma mentally, because I'm like, I'm putting all this money into movement because it really interests me. Like I really like the handstands. I like all the flexibility work, the bodyweight strength, but I can't, it's not bringing me money back in the gym, if that makes sense. But I just kept doing it because it's what I wanted to do. What I wanted to learn about. But I also invested a bit of money into like the S&C stuff. I did some courses, for example, with like Charles Poliquin. What was his name? Phil Lerney, although his one wasn't great. But yeah, Phil Lerney, he was a big one for the UK. I think I'd signed up to his like coaching academy course as well, the ACA Academy. Anyway, I did some bits. Basically, I did some learning from both angles. I didn't bring a lot of movement into the gym, no. I did bring in some of the bodyweight strength stuff, but not much on like the hand balancing and flexibility, especially not at the beginning. Towards the end of the 4 years, I think people just started to notice me doing more stretching and maybe a bit more hand balancing. And I think the gym asked me to teach one of their stretch classes for them. So I did that, and that went really well actually in the last year that I was there. But it wasn't like bringing me clients or anything like that. I was teaching the class for free, as well as some other classes. Yeah, I used to teach spin like 3 times a week. It's like, if you can imagine me, or like this like crazy spin playlist, like on the bike shouting at like 30 people, and yes, go faster, up, down, left. Yeah, it was quite fun. But that used to be me at Pure Gym.
Yeah, man, you should have stayed along that path. I can imagine you now like leading spin classes.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. So basically then obviously things must have accelerated pretty quickly in a positive way, because then all of a sudden 2019 you're like, I can open up a gym now. Like there seems to be a lot of interest, maybe Instagram, you're getting a lot of notice, like that kind of movement scene in London. Was it pretty big then?
No, there was one declared movement gym. I think it was Local Motion, the name of that gym, and they had like some basic classes. I don't think they taught handstands, but they did do like some general bodyweight strength. I got like more of the functional vibe from them, although they were kind of called a movement gym when I looked them up back at the time. So I knew movement was growing. Like movement gyms were opening up around Europe, around the US. They had been in Australia for a while anyway at that point. So I was thinking, it's bound to like grow in London as well. And there's definitely a bit of an audience for it here, but if I can open the first proper one, then I'm sure it will pick up even more audience. So I did. I went with it. I'd been saving for a while, and then one of my friends approached me and she said, "Hey, I've also been saving. Do you want to open up your own space? We'll go into it like this, so and so." I was like, "Yeah, let's go for it. I think it'll work." We found a space in Bethnal Green and we opened it. And yeah, things were going great. Like classes were packed. It took a while to get going, but I mean, we'd only been there for a year. And we were just getting to like, I think we were just getting to the end of our 12th month, and we were like, oh wow, we're almost breaking even. Like we're so close to breaking even this month. And then, so that virus that was in China is now in London. We're gonna have to close doors. Okay, great. So yeah, it got a bit messy from there. And I wasn't able to sort of like continue. We tried for like a good 6 months or so, and then I ended up just leaving and having to like go fully online. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that you're kind of out the other end, like, would you ever look back, like going back into brick and mortar, or is it just too much overhead and stressors to want to do that again?
Like I'm pretty confident if I was to do it again, I could make it work pretty well. I just wouldn't want to do it here. So I want to be somewhere where I'm kind of settled and happy to know that I'll be staying for a while. I want to be able to look around, be like, yep, this is home. This is where I want to be. And then once I'm in that mindset, then I more than likely I can see myself opening something, because I loved the community I made at that gym, or we made at that gym. It was hard to beat. Like online's amazing. You've got like somewhat of a community online as well. And I have Zoom calls with my clients, which is great, but it's not the same as waking up at like 5 a.m, getting to the gym for your 6:30 a.m class, and then you've got your 10 guys walking in, 15 guys walking in for their 6:30 a.m class, and like they're all there ready to train, and you're all having a coffee, etc., and getting your reps in. Not that I would want to do that every day, because it does get tiring, but being able to like just create that community is, I think, is great. So yeah, I would do it. I'd do it a little bit differently, but I would be up for doing it again.
Yeah, I think like as a coaching, like as a career PT, it's like you can kind of just see the numbers. Like I think there's a 70% dropout rate in the first 3 years. You don't really look around and be like, okay, awesome, like lawyer, doctor, teacher, that's the trajectory. That's where I want to see myself when I'm 50, when I'm 60. Like there's not a lot of people in the fitness industry that you can actually look at and be like, that's a really aspiring place to be in my 50s or 60s, because there's so few of them actually alive or who are still doing it. So I think doing the gym thing fully is such a high burnout rate, it seems. Like you're getting up 6 a.m, you're working before and after work. So I think like the hybrid model like you're talking about, I think like having online and then picking and choosing when you want to teach, maybe it's workshops or there is an actual space, but you're not tied, like I need to go in at 6 a.m to make money. I think that's definitely a much more sustainable approach.
Have you ever met a PT that's basically got the optimal working hours? So let's say from like 8 a.m in the morning, they do like 4 to 6 sessions just back to back up until like 12, 2 o'clock, and then they're done for the day.
No.
Right. So back then I didn't think it was possible. And then I met a few PTs like that in Australia. There's a couple in London, but very hard to do that in London. And they're like, yeah, it's perfect. Like I could probably continue doing this for the next 10 to 15 years. I'm like, you know what, you're right. Like if you're doing like, 5 to 6 sessions from 8 a.m till, I don't know, 12, 1, 2 p.m. latest, like it's not that bad of a job. I know you have to be like engaged pretty hard. But these guys have set themselves up a business where I could see them doing that sustainably. But this is like the 0.5% of the PTs that are still working. Like you said, there's a super high dropout rate of PTs. I think like so you heard 70, I heard 90 or something in the UK, but either way, it's freaking high. And you just don't get a lot of PTs that basically learn how to build a sustainable business. And it does, like you said, require a lot of effort itself. There are a few out there that are living the sweet life where they're getting a good balance. But yeah, it does take its toll compared to being online, which doesn't take its toll but has other consequences. I do agree.
Yeah, let's kind of go into the online, because it is I think that there's a lot of coaches out there who want to maybe build a following on Instagram or something, and really it's, I'm guessing, to get clients to build a remote business. What are some of the benefits, but also maybe some of the downsides, the frustrations that you've seen from going fully remote since 2020?
The downside is just the less human contact. That's partly why I also started to do some workshops and retreats as well, because they're just like a nice, basically, injection of that human contact that you get, and then you can step away from it again and go back to your online stuff. I think for people like me who are quite introverted and I like my own time, my own space, online is great in that regard, but doesn't matter how introvert you are, you still need some human connection. Like it goes a long way. But benefits, oh yeah, benefits are huge. Like I've been able to travel while working. I could say, hey, going to go to Australia for 6 months. I won't be able to respond to your messages for 24 hours while I'm on this flight. But other than that, once I'm there, back to normal work, and I can work while I travel, and I can work while and still be able to make time for my spearfishing or my own training or whatever. And I can set my own hours. You can set your own hours as a PT as well, but it's very hard because there's only like so many prime hours in the day which people want to train at. But as an online coach, you can write your programs at any time. And now you can also book in Zoom calls almost at any time. Like most people are working from home. They ask me, they're like, hey, Erdi, when's the best time for you for us to have this call? I'm like, yeah, this time is great for me. Let's do it then. So, I mean, it's great in that regard. But it's hard to build. Like if you don't know how to use social media, and I don't mean just like how to put up a post. I mean, if you don't know how to use social media to basically advertise well and facilitate a business, then it's very difficult. And these aren't things that we're taught. When you go to a PT course, you're not even taught how to approach people on the gym floor. Like, never mind how to build a business. And it's the same. Now you want to go into online coaching. And if you don't know how to talk to people, but also how to talk to them online and how to advertise online, you're not going to be an online coach. You're just going to be a guy who writes, I have 2 spots for online coaching every week on your Instagram, hoping someone's going to join up. It's very hard to get that going until you get your head around it and learn the mechanics of that side of things.
Yeah. So like you were saying that you've been working with Emmett Lewis for 5 years. So like you've gotten help from super high level coach. I'd like to go into that in a bit more detail in a sec, but then learning about online marketing, sales, it's kind of like, it's funny because I was very anti-marketing, anti-sales. You shouldn't do that. It's scammy or whatever. It was actually the more stuff I did with GMB, the more it was like, they made me see the benefits of marketing because they're attracting the people who want to find them. Everyone I meet through GMB are just cool, chill people. And I'm like, that's great marketing, that you're attracting people who actually want to find your services. So did you like learn from someone? Is it self-knowledge? Like, how did you get better at building this stuff online yourself?
Yeah, the whole like marketing and advertising dilemma being scammy is a really interesting one. Basically, the people that try and teach you that are also the ones that either make no money or the ones that are making lots of money. So it's like either the resentful people that don't really know how to do it, or it's the ones that have done it in a slightly different way, not realizing that they've advertised or not wanting to admit that they've advertised, but then trying to not basically help you build your own business. It's quite interesting. But when we look at marketing and advertising, what it is basically letting people know what you do. And it's like, if you have a service and you want to help people, they need to know that you're in a position that you can help them. Like, that's all that marketing or advertising is. And then it's just a matter of, okay, how do you do that? Do you go down like the scammy route of doing it and tell lies? Or are you just honest and genuine with people and be like, hey, guess what? I know how to solve these problems. If you have any of these problems and you want them solved, I can help you. No pressure. Essentially, they're two very extremes. You can meet somewhere in the middle if you want, whatever. I did a few courses. So you've probably heard of Jonathan Goodman.
Oh yeah, man. I work with him.
Oh, you work with him? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I did the PT, Personal Trainer Online Academy. Is that what it was called? The first one?
Yeah, OTA, yeah.
That's it, Online Trainer Academy. I did that back in 2017, I think it was. I did, what else did I do? I followed a few other online coach trainers, or whatever you want to call them, business helpers, etc. I did another course with, what was his name? Brian Rose. Yeah, that's it, Brian Rose. London.
Oh,
London Real Academy? Yeah, London Real. Yeah, so this was like a while ago. I think this was 2017. Yeah,
what
it was like
Brian Rose. He's
I stopped. I stopped there.
He lost his mind during COVID. It's like he went super scammy. He was like doing such a good thing with London Real, and then it was all like COVID conspiracies and like crazy clickbait stuff.
Yeah, he's
But
an interesting
so,
guy. I think he ran for London mayor as well, didn't he, at one point? Um,
yeah,
whether it was for press for his own business or not, who knows? Because like when I did his stuff, it was great. I got quite a lot out of London Real. He basically forced us all to submit videos like vlogs online. He's like, before you start this course, you have to submit 10 different vlogs on your social media page.
mm,
And these are the rules, right? So, and then if you don't, you can't start the course. It's like, oh shit, well, I've just paid however much money it was. Those courses aren't cheap. But then it kind of it forced me to do that. And just by like that one thing that he got everyone to do was like, oh, wow, actually, that's already made a difference, So that was really interesting. But anyway, that was a good course. I mean, I have heard of a lot of these courses being a bit scammy, the online marketing business ones, etc. And I am like in 100% on the same wavelength as those people that suggest that. I do think a lot of them are nonsense. But and I also don't think one of them is going to change your life. The same way how doing your PT course didn't turn you into an ultimate coach. How many, if you think about it, it's like how many seminars have we done, have we been attended, or how many coaches have we learned from to get to our level of being able to help people? Great. It's been quite a few. I've probably spent, I think I worked it out, it was like over 75 grand or something crazy like that in total expenses. But then how many business courses have you done? Oh, I done one, it wasn't very good, and I'm still not making a lot of money. Okay, well, that's not the mindset that's really going to take you very far. You're either going to need to do a few, or you're going to need to put in hundreds of hours of your own time figuring this shit out.
yeah, man, you've made such a great point there. It's such a easy trap to get into as a coach. It's like I haven't put in 75K of movement stuff, but like, yeah, in the tens of thousands of dollars of courses. And it's nice to go away and learn from like a world expert or whatever. You meet cool people, all this type of stuff. But you need to also learn how to get clients, look after people, get really good results, and like learn how to run a service-based business where you're dealing with people as well. It's kind of like, almost like a safety thing. I'll just keep investing. Oh, people don't get me, they don't understand what good coaching is. It's like, no, you're just bad at marketing yourself, and you need to invest more in that, right?
Yeah, the service thing hits hard. Like that's a big one, and a lot of people just don't have that genuinely. So like some people will just genuinely be really nice. They want to help. Even if you're not paying them much, even if you're not paying them at all. They want to help fix your problem because they know they can. And you'll be more attracted to that. You'll notice that, and you'll want to invest more of your time or your money into that type of person, and you'll stay with them for longer. Whereas some coaches, they just don't care. They don't want to help. They're there because they're smart, like they know how to do things, but they don't know how to like. It's not they don't know how. It's they just don't have that genuine incentive to want to help people. They want to be paid, which is fine. I mean, a job is a job. Like a job is a means to an end to it. You need to feed yourself, right? But it will also separate the better coaches, or not the better coaches, the coaches that you will want to invest more time into versus those that you don't.
Yeah. And also you made a good point about just like letting people know what you do. I think in particular on social media or in general, like people are busy. So like you can think like or everyone knows what you're doing. They're just not interested in your services, but like they literally don't know what you're doing. Like
I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
They don't have I could put up a stories every single day, post every day. Hey, I'm an online coach. Hey, I'm an online coach. I will still get a message and be like, hey, so do you sell programs? Or like, hey, do you offer coaching? And it's like, hey man, are you new here? Like, you watching? But this is like, at first you get annoyed, right? And then in the end you realize, oh, you know what? I'm just not advertising hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. You think you might be spamming people or whatever. Like John Goodman again, like he's such a great resource for people if they haven't checked him out. He makes a really good point. He's like, imagine it's like a cake shop, but the shutters are down, and you're in the cake shop saying to yourself, God, no one's coming in. It's like people don't even know the shop's open, like So you
pretty much.
Yeah.
This is like no one cares about your free RM or your chin up like that. They want to know what you can do for them. Like let them know you're a coach. They need to know.
Yeah, yeah. Let's jump into your own training and maybe how that's changed over the years. Also, like Ben, you've obviously working with a coach for 5 years now, so maybe, yeah, tell us about like also, I'm asking you a lot of questions at once, but like, has your volume changed? I know a lot of people I talk to who are physically doing really amazing things, and then when you talk about their training volume, it has been, they've put in the hours. So has that been a thing for you as well, like a lot of hours and then pulled it back, or you're still doing a lot of hours, or how is all that going?
Yeah, so that all fluctuates based on, for me, it's based a bit more around the seasons, but also based on my, let's say, career ambitions at the time. So like basically, the more I want to put into my business, the less mental energy I have for my training. And then if I'm at a stage where I'm like, oh, actually, business is good here, I'm good to cruise, I'm going to ramp up in training. So, or as every time spring comes, I'm always like super hyped on training. As soon as like end of March comes, I'm like, okay, back to double sessions, back to doing like 15 to 20 hours a week of training.
Wow.
And it'll last a bit, and then it'll kind of drop down again. Yeah, when I first started training with Emma, I had an injury, so we couldn't do loads. But it was like a decent, I think, 7 to 8 hours. And then in my peak of training with Emma, it was probably in 2020. I was doing about 20 hours a week, close to 25 hours a week of training. I was doing a lot. This is while I was running the gym as well, but I basically lived in the gym, so that was very helpful. And then, I mean, like, let's say now for comparison, I'm probably doing about 7 to 10 hours a week. I'm not doing a heavy amount. It fluctuates quite a bit based on where I'm at mentally. But that's kind of me. Like, I've seen people who will be like hardcore 15 to 20 hours while whatever happens in their life happens. They'll just make the training fit. I'm not that disciplined of an athlete, if that makes sense. But I train a few people who are like, there's a mother I train in the US, and she's also like starting to become some more self-employed, run her own stuff and teach hockey to kids, etc. And she's training like 15 hours a week every week, no questions asked. Like, she just gets it in. And it doesn't matter what happens. She's going on holiday today, I think, and she's like, hey, can you write me an adjusted program? But I'm training the same amount. I just can't use basically this, or I can't do this because I don't have that equipment. I'm like, yeah, no stress, I got you. Yeah. So
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I think I like talking to people about this, because like, people will look at your Instagram and they're like, oh, cool, I want to be able to do the stuff Erdi's doing. But it's like, are you going to do 4 hours, 5, 6 days a week for many, many years or months, or, as you said, seasonally, you might do it and then back off. People don't realize, they're like, oh, can I do like 3 sessions a week for like 6 months and like get all the skills that you have? So I think it's really, anytime I'm talking to people, it's like decades with, 10 to 20 hours a week seems to be the kind of the goal. A lot of people, yeah, it's like 4 hours a day and maybe a day off a week seems to be like, to get to those higher levels, right?
yeah, depending on like I guess our definition of high level. Like, let's say, I guess your audience are like movement people as well, so they'll probably understand when I'm talking about like a 2-arm handstand or a press to handstand, handstand push-ups, whatever, splits, front splits, bridge. Like, if you can devote about 15 hours a week for about 3 years, you can probably accomplish most of the things. Like, I'm talking like 2 hours a day, up to 2.5 hours a day for about 6 days a week. Yeah, probably a little bit more, 2 to 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. Just give yourself 3 years and you'll tick almost everything. It's just, yeah. If not, like, there'll be times in the year we have to do a bit less. Cool. Extend that 3 years up to about 5 years. And you can probably tick off most of the boxes. 2-arm handstands, all the shapes, press the handstand, pike handstand, handstand push-up, maybe not full 1-arm chin-up, maybe close to it, but all of the ranges, splits, front splits, bridge, like, you could probably have all that. You probably won't need 10 years. like it'll come very much depend on the person. Like, who is this person? Are they like a 20-year-old, or are they like a 50-year-old who hasn't trained before? It's very different categories.
Yeah.
So in general, yes, it does take time, and in general, the more you can like burst into like a shorter time period, then the more results you'll get, but also the higher chance that either you'll burn out, or it won't be sustainable, or it just doesn't work for your lifestyle. So, I train people who will do 1.5 hours, three days a week, or 4 days a week max. And it's taken them like, 3-4 years to achieve like a few like big goals, like splits or like a handstand push-up, etc. They can't do everything, but they can do a few things that they really wanted to do.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you got really clear there, because again, it's like just 2 hours a day, 6 days a week for about 3 years, and that should help you get most things. And like, I think it's just really good to be like, that's basically the volume investment. And then obviously, if you're a 50-year-old guy who's never trained, or a 25-year-old guy who was a childhood gymnast, okay, it's going to be very different, like your progress and everything. But I think like a lot of the people I train, that's too much, for
Yeah.
their lifestyle. I'm looking at like my clients is kind of like 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week maximum.
Yep.
So it's good just to hear that, because it's like, okay, well then if you're only going to be doing 3 or 4 hours versus 12 hours, well, that's a third of the volume. So it's going to take 3 times longer. Like, that's just the reality, or longer than that even.
Pretty much, it will take longer. Yeah. And it will take longer because basically the motor learning will happen slower. Whereas when you're condensing everything into shorter spaces of time, the motor learning happens a lot faster. You're basically stacking on the learning curves each time you train. Whereas when you're taking those gaps, in theory, you've done the same amount of volume as the other person over 3 times the length of time, but you've had more gaps in between, so that your motor learning has been a lot slower, if that makes sense. So things like handstands, it just won't be the same.
Yeah, great, man. What's something you've changed your mind on recently, or perspective on recently? And by recently, we can say the last kind of 18 months.
In what context?
Can be anything. I mean, we can keep it in a training frame, but really in anything in general.
Something I've changed my mind on. I'm sure I've had a couple of things, but my brain's a little bit slow. I think it was the importance of, I think it was more so like the importance of having like-minded individuals around you. Like, I've always known it's relatively important in terms of, like, let's say you want to train handstands. You train with other hand balancers, you will make faster progress, guaranteed. It just happens. But you can put this into any area of your life, whether it's like career. Let's say you want to make more money online, or you spend more time with people who make more money, you will guarantee to make more money online, etc. But let's say you want to be happier, you want to just be a bit more rested, a bit like more fulfilled. Sometimes I thought like going to some of these more remote locations where I'm like away from everyone, I thought I'd be fine. But actually, I still need the presence of people I can connect with on like the same mental wavelength. Like, you can put me somewhere super remote and I will enjoy it, have a great time, go fishing, etc. But I'll be sad. Like, over a period of time, like I'll start to get sad / lonely. Even with like Sarah, my girlfriend there, it would still happen. But now you bring some like friends together and make us like live in the same area, or like just having people who are also interested in health. It doesn't have to be like movement enthusiasts and one-arm hand balancers and stuff like this. Just people who are interested in their health or share similar values to myself. Put them in the same environment as me, and it's a complete different story. So yeah, I didn't really basically appreciate the value of community as much as I thought I did. Whereas now I appreciate it a bit more.
Yeah, man, that's a super important point. That's something I felt like traveling a lot is loneliness is something I struggled with quite a lot, in particular in Australia. But it's because I was working, I had people there, but I just wasn't spending a lot of time around people. And then I started bachata dancing, which is like Latin dancing, this year. And then I started in January in the Canaries. But then when I moved to Romania 2 months ago, I joined a dance school, and it's like the impact that that has had, like going in 2, 3, 4 times a week, dancing with people, which you're essentially hugging people for like an hour or two. And dude, it's amazing. Like I've met loads of people, feel super connected, and like the impact it's had. I'm like, there's no more loneliness at all. And I've just moved here like 2 months ago. So I totally agree with the community component.
So what's the name of that hormone? Is it oxytocin? What's the name?
Oxytocin, yeah,
Yeah,
oxytocin.
it's just like a whole hour of oxytocin and friendly people in your dance classes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge, man. Yeah, human touch as well is like, I think it was Ido Portel's actually saying this about BJJ. He's like, people are going to BJJ because they want to get like contact with people. That's why it's blown up so much.
Yeah, it's
And
quite
it is
ironic.
definitely.
Ironic that Ido would say that. Because he used to go to BJJ classes and basically not get involved in the class and only do privates with the trainers.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. I had a friend that was training at one of the gyms that Ido used to go to, and he knew the trainer, the guy that trained Ido, and the trainer was like, "Yeah, Ido never actually joined the classes. He never wanted to be in the group setting. He just wanted the privates." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
But no, Ido does make great points on the whole human contact thing. I think he's very aware of it, but I think there's other things going on there too. But anyway, I agreed.
Yeah. So I'm conscious of your time, mate. So I'm going to go into just some rapid fire to finish off.
Oh, you're all good.
So given the choice of anyone in the world, who would you like to sit down with for 2 or 3 hours over dinner and pick their brain?
I mean, if you asked me a few years ago, it would have been very different. Like right now, coming back from Oz, I've just like got super into the spearfishing mentality and like wanting to learn more about that. And there seems to be a really nice Australian guy named Timothy McDonald who's like I think he's one of Australia's best spearos. Spearo is just like another word for spearfisher. And I'd love to sit down and chat to him if I ever make it down to Brisbane. Hopefully, I can meet up with him and just pick his brains about spearfishing around those waters because they have some crazy stories, man. Some of the things that these guys do and see, and yeah, the situations they put themselves in are nuts. But anyway,
Oh, okay, awesome. Like fighting sharks.
yeah, like fighting sharks, yeah, or even just navigating the Australian waters. Like I've been looking into it. I was like, oh, you know what? I want a boat. And then I was speaking to one of my Australian friends, and he's like, yeah, where you're going, you might want to pick up like a good year's worth of experience first before you get a boat because it's really hard to navigate those waters. I was like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the water in Oz, but I just realized when I was there, we'd go for a hike, and I was like, oh right, yeah. Like in Ireland, you just go for a hike, you don't think. I was like, oh, I could die if I'm not organized here. Like you get lost, and then you're just like you die of sunstroke or something, or get eaten by something.
Yeah, or there's these plants apparently, and they like if you touch them, they'll like leave this burning sensation on your skin. So it feels like you're burning, but you're also being electrocuted at the same time, and it can last for like over a year on like this area. So imagine like UK stinging nettles, but on like fucking tren and testosterone, but add in like all the other sensations. And one of these plants was just like up on our normal hike. Like me and Sarah went on like just a standard hike somewhere. Where was it? In Townsville? I think it was in close to Townsville. No, it was close to Kent. And we get to the top of the thing, and there's like a signpost for it. Like, oh, by the way, don't touch these plants. And then we found out what those plants were later. It's like, fuck, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like when you see it's the same with like the beaches in Oz. It's like, be aware, and it's like, like 15 different things that are going to eat you or kill you, and you're like, all right,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, the
Yeah,
water
yeah.
looks lovely, but I'm a bit paranoid now.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, awesome, man. So, like, what would you say you're most grateful for?
Grateful. Recently I realized that you're actually really privileged to have a UK passport. Like if you have a UK passport, it opens up so many doors. So I'm pretty grateful for at the moment for having one of those. I went to Saudi Arabia recently, and I was just like looking at how the airport staff were treating everyone in the airport, and it was they were just like so rude. So yeah, let's say he's like authoritarian, whatever. And then a guy walks up to me and he's like, "Let me see your passport." And I show it to him and he's like, "Oh, welcome to Saudi Arabia." I'm like, "Oh, nice. Thanks very much." I was like, just because I'm holding a UK passport, it's nuts. But then I realized it also opens up other doors to different places. I think it also made things a bit trickier with the whole Brexit situation recently. But in general, it is quite a privilege to have.
Totally, man. Yeah, they have a thing in Europe as well, where you can just scan your passport and you go in, and there's a few different countries. So Ireland's one of the countries, but even just like ability to get into countries, I think is a huge thing. Like one of my
Yeah,
mates from Australia, he's from Iran, but now he's got an Australian passport. So like he can go anywhere, like
yeah.
literally couldn't go anywhere. Like, and now it was about 4 years ago he got his citizenship, and then he was like went straight to Europe, went on a trip. But like up until that point, he was like, oh yeah, I can go to like 4 places in the world, or like just in the Middle East.
That's it. We really take it for granted. Yeah, I met a couple of people recently. Just from like just one guy, one of my friends in Turkey. We're trying to like have a meetup with some friends in the US next year. And this guy's from Turkey and he doesn't have a passport yet. And he's like, "Yeah, it's not actually that easy for me to get to the US and get a visa and get this and that." And I'm like, "Huh? Like even though you're in Turkey?" And he's like, "Yeah, like even being from Turkey right now, it's just really hard to do all this." So that's interesting. And then there was like another guy from another Asian country, and he's very like your friend from Iran, very limited to how many places he can go to. So yeah, I do think we take it for granted sometimes, and we try and make out we've got all these problems, but at the same time we've got access to the entire world, literally.
Totally, man.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your greatest accomplishment to date?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I don't really put that much value on those sort of things. Maybe just like getting closer to being able to, well, not even getting closer, like having control over the lifestyle that I want to live. Like being able to say, okay, I am here right now because I choose to be, and I can be there tomorrow because I choose to be, you know. Um, and building the online business, I think, has been a big part in that. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's huge. It's like having that freedom to do what you want when you want.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Books. You recommend 2 books, fiction, if you read fiction, and then maybe something in training or business related.
I don't actually read much anymore. Um, there's one really good book. Crap, what was it called? Way of the Warrior. Was it Way of the Warrior? Dan Millman? Yeah, I'm just trying to look around my room because I'm sure it was around here somewhere. So this is one of the books that had a big impact on me. It's about Socrates and a gymnast. So it's quite relevant for people like us because, oh, this guy's a gymnast. But it has some like nice philosophical or nice life lessons and things in there. But I just realized things weren't as bad as I always thought they were after reading that book. And I was like, oh, so this is how I deal with an inconvenient situation. I kind of just accept that it is what it is, and you move on instead of kind of like getting stuck there and bringing all these thoughts and negative emotions into it, which you might need to do for like a small period of time. But then it's like, okay, it's over. Let's move on to the next hurdle. And then in terms of training, what can I recommend you guys? I mean, I'll tell you what, there was a good book. It was a Malcolm Gladwell book. What was it called? I might need to look this up. Sorry, I'm taking up time.
No, not at all, man.
It
Is it
was a while
Outliers?
ago. No, it was something about the myth of talent. The myth of talent. Was it Malcolm Gladwell? Bounce.
Great, man.
Bounce. The myth of talent and the power of practice.
Oh,
This was a
cool.
really interesting book because it basically gets you to think about things from a slightly more logical perspective instead of, it's because of their genes, if that makes sense.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, if it's because of their genes, why is it because of their genes? And he goes into some information. This was a while ago, so like I haven't cross-referenced it with any of my current knowledge, but like back then it was very helpful.
Yeah, so just basically practicing growth mindset type of stuff, is it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, brilliant, man. Last question. If you could put something on, a billboard in somewhere like Times Square, what would the message be and why?
Leave. Get out the city.
Get out.
It's slowly. I'll go like a full Brian Rose. Be like, 5G is killing you. Get out the city. Maybe not that extreme.
Sign up for my crypto course.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'll probably just put my website up there, and if I pick up a few extra clients, that'll do me more justice.
Looking for 2 more clients this month.
Yeah, exactly. Looking for 2 more clients. Here's my website.
That's great, man. I love it, Erdi. Great chatting to you, man. Really good to connect and just pick your brain for the last kind of hour. Where can people learn more about you? We can link all this in the show notes.
Well, if you don't see the billboard in New York City, my my website is www.learningtohuman.co.uk. TO for the 2, learning to human. Or you can just find me on Instagram. It's probably the best and easiest way, and it's at learning to human, LEARNINGTOHUMAN. I answer all of my messages as long as they're not creepy. But yeah, I'll get back to you if you have any questions on anything. Yeah.
Amazing, man. Unfortunately, most people who listen to this are pretty creepy, so you're going to get a lot of weird messages.
Nice. Look forward to it.
Awesome, bro.